Well, welcome everybody to the 143rd annual meeting of the Dante Society of America. It's part of our bylaws that we have this annual meeting and that you approve the minutes from last meeting and you approve the treasurer's report and audit report and so on. But we try to make it a kind of a fun time to remember the things that we've done in this past year and talk about things on the horizon. And of course, we have some very fine content for you as well as your reward. The things I wanted to recall since the last time we were at this meeting is we had a symposium in Lima, Peru. It was the first time we went to South America. And I think Julie even has some images from this symposium, which was called Il Mondo Senza Gente, Dante in the Americas, Visibility and Invisibility. And we had several, yes, there's Alessandro Vittori, I can see right there. Is that Sarah? Yes, maybe. So this is proof that they went and all the people that were there. And Dennis Looney was there, Sarah Diaz, Alessandro Vittori, and Albert Ascoli was there virtually. Then we had the first ever graduate Dante conference, and that was this one here as the poster. It was at NYU this past fall, September 28th. It was organized by Martina Francisca of Johns Hopkins, Stefano Scandella of New York University, with a keynote by Marco Arezzo of University of Pennsylvania. The theme was Dante's Other Worlds. There were 10 papers. And a second graduate conference is already in the works for next September at the University of Notre Dame, organized by Beatrice Rosso of Notre Dame, Stefano Scandella of New York University, and Evan Underbrink, the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, California. The call for papers has already been sent out. Then in April of this year, we had the 2025 annual symposium of the Dante Society of America. It was called Dante and Money. It was co-organized by me and Vice President Alessandro Vittori of Rutgers University. And I think it was a big success. A lot of people came from the city. We even had sponsorship from the New York Medieval Society, which was very nice. And we have plans already for next year's symposium, which will again go south. We're planning to have it in Mexico City. And it is being organized by Natalia Vacalebre of the University of Alcalá in Spain, Cosette Bruns of Brown University now, and Alejandro Cuadrado of Bowdoin. And they have made contact with Biblioteca Nacional de Mexico, and they're going to do the conference there. So more on that in the future. We had lots of sponsored panels at the MLA, thanks to Anne Leone, who was our liaison. She is stepping down, and Nassim Chida Madiwale of Duke University has taken over that role. Filippo Gianferrari organized a bunch of Dante panels at the Renaissance Society of America, and Yelena Todorovic organized not only 3 Dante panels at the International Congress for Medieval Studies at Kalamazoo, but also for the first time 2 collaborative ones with the Societas Ovidiana, at which Julie Van Pettingham presented this year. What else do I have to tell you? The Dante Studies is in very good shape. It's back on the calendar, and so you will be receiving the 2025 issue probably by December 2025, and the 2026 volume is already in the works, and there's going to be a forum on women Dante scholars. That and okay, so yes, so I wanted to announce this year's winners of the Presidential Service Awards. They are Stefano Scandella of New York University and Giuseppe Vicinanza of the New School, who worked on the bibliography this year. As you know, we have a collaboration with the Società Dantesca Italiana to input things every year into the database of the International Dante Bibliography. And then, as we used to do in the journal, but we continued this tradition of making this kind of honorary, these are the things that were published in North America or by North American Dante scholars. And so that's the latest one we have. These are on the website, so you can find them there. So the 2022 one is the last one up. So yes, I wanted to announce those two prizes. I have another exciting announcement, which is that we have a new prize, and it's going to be called the Kleinhans Prize for Publication. And this is thanks to a generous gift from Christopher Kleinhans and his wife Marge Kleinhans, and it's going to be for subventions for books. Because as we all know now in the publishing industry, a lot of times you need subventions. And so we're going to put how to do it and everything on the website. The Council of the Dante Society will be the judges. We'll do it once a year. The applications for the award should be sent to the secretary of the Dante Society, which is Julie van Pettigem, by August 31st. That's the deadline. So if you know anyone or if you yourself are in the process of trying to get a book published and it's costing money, thanks to Chris Kleinhans and Marge Kleinhans, we're going to have a fund for that. So the gift of the Kleinhanses was matched by the society, so we've put our own money towards it. Maybe in the future it is the sort of thing that other people would like to give to. So that's a nice piece of news that we have. Okay, so I think that's probably all I have in terms of announcements. And now we should move to the business part. We can get that over with. We need to approve the minutes from the 142nd annual meeting.
So I just posted them again in the chat. I also shared these with you in my email on Wednesday. So now is the time. If I misspelled a word, got the date wrong, please let us know. Otherwise, I'm going to ask if somebody can call a motion to approve the minutes of our 2024 annual meeting.
I move.
A second.
Second.
So all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye or raise your virtual hand. I'll take it. No, I want to hear you.
Aye.
Yes,
Aye.
thank you.
Aye.
Perfect. Oh, wow. We got
Aye.
even a thumb up in the chat. Thank you. Anyone opposing? All right, so the 2024 annual meeting minutes are approved. More business from me. Hang tight. So we have, thanks to all of you, reached a quorum. So according to our bylaws, we need attendance representation by proxy of a quarter of our total membership. And for 2025, up until May 1st, that was 382 members across all categories. I did the math, so we needed at least 96 people. We reached that quorum senza problema, so we are in good order, and that was a legitimate vote that just happened. So the next item on our agenda is the report of the treasurer. So we have two more reports to approve as part of our business meeting. And I'm going to peek if Michael Sherberg, our treasurer, was able to connect. He had Wi-Fi issues after a tornado passed last night, and so I do not see him here. So I am going to report what I think he typed out on his phone with us this morning. So this is the treasurer's report. So the treasurer presented a full report to the Dante Society Council during our spring 2025 meeting, which was held in New York on April 12th of this year. We have assets totaling $450,652.76. The Society helped underwrite the recent conference at NYU on Dante and money. We had budgeted 16,000 plus for the conference and ended up spending 11,088.19 cents. I think this is such a precise number because that's the addition to what the council heard in April. But in conclusions, our finances are in good order. So following the report of the treasurer, we go to the audit committee. And I'm looking if Susanna Barcella is online. She currently chairs that committee. That committee too has a brief report. I am going to go through my alphabetical list. I do not see Susanna, so I will present the report on behalf of the committee. The committee consists of Susanna Barcella as chair, Martin Eisner, and me, myself. We met on Zoom with the treasurer, Michael Scherberg, on April 10 of this year to review the 2024 year-end report prepared by the treasurer along with statements from the Society's Vanguard Investment and Bank of America checking accounts. The committee found the accounts in good order and the financial health of the Society to be sound. So our next job now is I am calling a motion to approve both the 2024 Treasurer Report and the 2024 Audit Committee Report. So can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving these reports, please say aye or raise your virtual hand. I see more than one hand. Perfect. Anyone opposing? Thank you. So the 2024 Treasurer's Report and the 2024 Audit Committee Report are approved. So now we're done with the approving. Anything else that's left is applauding. So now we get to all the announcements that we have. And first I'll invite Christian. No, it's first my secretary's report. Okay, and then the fun stuff, all the prizes and the awards. But first, you'll have to sit through the secretary's report. I'm so sorry. All right. So as the secretary, every year I report on the membership. And I'm sure you all read very carefully the minutes from last year where our total amount of members was included. And if you listened carefully, I said also what the number currently is. But we actually, after a couple of years of a minor decline in membership, we grew. So we went from, let me just get the numbers, from 365 members last year, and now we added about 5%, and we're at 382. So let's keep that trend going. 2021 was a booming year for Dante, for the Dante Society, for Dante Studies in general, and our membership is slightly up. So that's very exciting. And I'll continue the exciting news. Last year at the membership meeting, our communications director, Danielle Caligari, and I gave you a sneak peek of what was in the works for the website redesign. And we're very excited to extend that peak and also announce when we intend to go live with that really completely redesigned website. And so since you're hearing from me more than enough in this meeting, I will pass it over to Danielle, who will walk you through some of the pages on our new website.
Thank you, Julie. Hi, everyone. There's only good news in the sense that things are moving along. There's nothing unexpected or any new obstacles. We're moving a little bit more slowly than we hoped, but it turns out that lines us right up to launch the site formally with the new 2025 academic year. So our plan is to smooth out the last few kinks over the summer and have it ready for everyone to start using in September of 2025. In the meantime, what Julie's showing you is the landing page that we have. And what we hope you'll see is, as previously announced, we have privileged legibility, accessibility, clarity, and we hope also a freshness that nonetheless still aligns with the image of the society and the long traditions that Dante represents for us. We have a couple of pages ready to go here for everyone to look at. The who we are, which is going to be fleshed out at last with pictures and bios of all of the people who participate in the administration and management of the society, something that we consider to be very important, because putting a face to our organization was lacking, and we hope will not just do the good work of humanizing us, but also remind people of all the individuals that make up this great whole, and how they can interact with us at that level, as well as in the other tabs, which are how we give back or elaborate the world of Dante studies actively. One of those ways being through our publications. And here you see our page for Dante notes, which was once buried in under many layers in our site and not necessarily very clearly available to the people who wanted to interact with it, nor doing the great work that it naturally does, which is presenting these opportunities to interact with and have a conversation about Dante outside of our more formal channels. We have organized it in a way that allows people to see all of these things easily, access them quickly, and we hope also begin to become more active contributors. Is there anything else that I should add here, Julie? We hope everybody is happy with the aesthetic that we've chosen, and we'll add that we'll let our membership know a little bit before the formal launch that the site is live, so that you can take a look at it and let us know if you notice anything in terms of formatting, typos, and all of that kind of stuff that we'll hopefully manage to hack our way through over the next couple of months, but we'll be happy to have your help and feedback on when that time comes.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Thank you.
Julie and Danielle for doing this big job. It's really amazing. So thank you.
All right, we do expect the highest hits on launch day. So just we want a strong, enthusiastic response once it goes live, because also in part of the update is that we get better tracking of like how the site is being used. So that'd be very interesting too, to see how people from around the world find their way to our Dante Society website. All right, so 2 more items on our business meeting part. So now I'd like to invite our former secretary, current archivist of the Society, Christian Dupont, and always active in the Society. He's currently serving on the nominating committee, and he will present their report.
Well, thank you, Julie. I'm pleased to follow both you and Danielle here, because I was going to mention myself my gratitude for the role that you've been doing as secretary and communications director for the past couple of years since my service as secretary, and the wonderful job you've been doing that. So it's a pleasure to see the Society under your continued leadership, Allison, and the support of Julie and Danielle and the other officers thriving and growing back in membership. That's really great. So I have the privilege of presenting this report precisely because my fellow members of the Society, of the nominating committee, actually were not able to join us today. So Ted Catchy chaired the committee this past year, and Ariel Saber served as a fellow member. So it's my, again, pleasure as well as duty here to report on behalf of the nominating committee regarding the elections that have just concluded. So as we'll recall, as members of the society, we were called upon to elect new councillors to fill the vacancies of two outgoing councillors who were our vice president for the last two terms, actually, Alessandra Vettori, and then also Catherine Odoyo. So I think we can express our gratitude, and I know Allison meant to add your comments as well here for their service on the society. So Alessandro and Catherine are anxious to know who's going to fill my spots. All right, so to refresh you on the ballots, because I think, as Julie said with enthusiasm, we all voted on the first day, right, when the ballots came out. That was some weeks ago. So I can say that we actually had a total of 70 ballots that were received across the membership, which the eligible voting membership at the time was 333. So voting participation rate of about 21%, which is consistent with previous years. So to refresh ourselves again on the ballot, we had 4 candidates for those 2 outgoing councillors' vacancies. So Filippo Gianferrari as the Assistant Professor of Literature at the University of California, Santa Cruz, Anne Leon, who is the Assistant Professor of Italian Studies at Syracuse University, Mary Watt, Professor of Italian Studies at the University of Florida, and Heather Webb, Professor of Italian Studies now at Yale University. So, appropriate drum rolls and all that, I am pleased to announce the election of Filippo Gianferrari and Heather Webb to council. So we can follow Julie's good example, opening our mics and giving vocal as well as virtual confetti cheers. So there we are. Good. So and it's nice that both Filippo and Heather were with us on the call here today. So congratulations to both of you, and thanks, of course, to Anne and to Mary for standing for election. It's an important duty in itself, as well as all the other things they do for the society and organizing conferences and presentations at our conferences. So again, thanks to all. And I guess, Julie, you will pick up at this point here again. I know that one of your duties as secretaries is to work with the new council to actually elect the vice president from the new council membership to serve. So
that's right. So Filippo and Heather, I mean, we're going straight to work. So you'll get that email. That's our first task as a new council. And thank you again, Alessandro and Odoyo, for your service these past years. So the final item on our agenda is also a very happy item. I will present on behalf of the prize committee. So there's no new information here because in the end of the fall of last year, the 2024 winners have been announced through our mailing list. But I do, as we always do at our annual meetings, also recognize the winners. So I'm reporting here on behalf of the 2024 prize committee, which included Fabian Alfi as chair, Paola Oreni, and Grace Del Molino. And the following winners were selected by this committee. The Dante Prize for Best Undergraduate Essay was awarded to Celeste Connell from Bard College with an essay entitled Lucan's Exiles, Solitude and Moral Vision in the Commedia. And I see that Celeste is here with us today. So give us a wave, Celeste, while we all give you an applause. Congratulations, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
And congratulations again. And then it was a split decision for the Charles Hall Grandgent Award for the Best Graduate Student Essay. So it was presented to 2 students, to Stefano Scandella at NYU for his paper Quando l'uomo ascende in cielo, ello è contro natura, Dante's unnatural ascent as informative violence in the making of paradise on earth, and to Triana Cancel from Penn State, for her essay, Rightfully Damned, Henry Fuseli's faithful adaptation of Francesca in Canto 5. And unfortunately, neither Stefano or Triana could join us today, but the checks arrived, so that's always good news. And we're happy to also give them a round of applause here. And then finally, for the Robert Durling Prize for Excellence in Teaching Dante at the secondary level, this prize in 2024 was awarded to Marina Shipley from Carroll County Public Schools in Westminster, Maryland, and also Marina, I think, wasn't able to make it today. So as a reminder, the Dante Prize carried a monetary award of $500, the Grandjean Award $1,000, as well as the Durling Prize at $1,000. I also wanted to report that based on the recommendation of the outgoing committee and the council, the 2025 prize committee revised the guidelines for this year's prize cycle, including the introduction of a new prize category for the Dante Prize for undergraduates, which now has this category for Best Multimedia Creative Project. So these new guidelines can be found on our website. We have already sent out the call for applications for the Dante Prize and the Grandjean Award. That is June 30th, 2025. So if you are a student, or if you have students in your class, or you can still email them, please send them a reminder before everybody breaks for the summer. And then the deadline for the Durling Prize is September 15, later this year. And submissions should be sent to our Dante Society at gmail.com email. And that's it for me. And I'll hand it back over to you, Allison.
Well, thank you, Julie. Thanks for all that good news. Since I see Ron Jenkins here, I wanted to, I don't have a visual except the thing I'm going to hold up, which is, I had the good fortune of no one's ever been before, because Ron has been doing this, I don't know, a long time, many decades, I think, where he has incarcerated persons and students at prestigious universities and colleges interact around Dante. And he has definitely changed many lives through this. The one I attended at Wesleyan was called Prison, Social Justice, and the Arts, Reimagining Dante's Inferno, with formerly incarcerated people. I don't know if that's all backwards or anything, but anyway. And it was also to honor this lovely woman with a beautiful singing voice who ran a choir in prison, if I understand correctly, and also was in this project of transforming lives. So anyway, I just wanted to make a plug. We didn't sponsor it, but I was invited, and I really, really appreciated it. Dante is in so many, he's everywhere, right? In so many different ways. So thank you all. So I think now, if there's no new business, I can adjourn the meeting. Is that what I need to do, Julie?
That's right.
I'm going to adjourn it just like that. I adjourned it. And now, if you can hang on for just a little bit more, we have very generously speakers to reminisce a little bit about some people that we lost this year. And the first is Zygmunt Baranski, who is Emeritus R.L. Canala Professor of Romance Languages and Romance Literatures, and the Serena Professor of Italian Emeritus, University of Cambridge. So those are two hats that he wears, but you know him through his scholarship and his influence in the field, which is very great. And I will pass the floor to Zygmunt, who's going to talk about Martin McLaughlin.
Thank you, Alison. Can you all hear me clearly?
Yeah.
When Alison asked me to say something about Martin, I couldn't but accept, but last several weeks I've done nothing but fret about what I was going to say and how I was going to say it. how do you start in commemorating, in talking about, in reminiscing about a person in a matter of a few minutes? You're holding that person, it's almost as if the memory of that person in your hand. And especially since most of you, I imagine, have never met Martin. He only came to the States once or twice. Some of you may have met him, but I suspect, unlike Rachel Jacoff, that I'm telling you something about someone who was little more than a name for some of you. And what I'm going to say is unabashedly subjective. It's the only way I can do it. There was a very pompous, formal commemoration for him in Christchurch, which was his college, which of course is also the seat of the famous Christchurch. And the way people spoke about him, it was as if we were at a lecture, and I found it very disturbing. Somehow the person had disappeared, and basically we were given a kind of or interpretation of his bibliography, of his academic honors, which I'm not sure was quite appropriate, at least as far as I'm concerned. So I kept wondering, how do you start? And one way I thought I would start is to tell you that I'm actually not in Reading, where we now reside, but I'm in Bristol at our son's Ed's home. And the reason I'm here is because all the women in our lives, they're all abroad. And so Ed and I immediately thought that it would be good to spend the weekend together, as we're a very closely knit family. And you might wonder, why is Zig talking about his family? It's because I think Martin would have approved, because Martin would have understood the hook that I was creating, because Martin was someone for whom family was absolutely the most important thing in his life. His wife, Kathy, his daughter Mary, who is of course your colleague, your Berkeley colleague, and his granddaughter Iona, with whom he spoke, thanks to the wonders of communication that we enjoy now, thanks to which I'm speaking to you. He spoke to Iona most days, and I've often thought about how Iona's dealing with the fact that she's no longer able to speak to her grandfather. Martin was a remarkable person, and I use that term advisedly. He was really, indeed, he was perhaps the most remarkable person that I've known. And I'm saying this not because I'm commemorating his memory, it's because it's what I think and feel. And the reason for this is that if there was one word that, for me, one epithet that defines Martin, is that he was generous. He was his dedication, selfless dedication to others, students, friends, colleagues, just anybody he came into contact, was absolutely exemplary. He was profoundly interested in other people. And this selflessness wasn't just in his interpersonal relations, but it extended to the commitment that he placed in our subject, the need to try to protect not just Italian, but also modern languages in general and literary studies in general. But he also put the same commitment into those institutions upon which we all depend, and which in these very difficult times sort of serve as a kind of at least minimal bulwark against all the dangers and threats which especially you guys over there are now facing, and which cannot but have, I fear sadly, a profound impact on the way in which our subject, and humanistic studies in particular, are going to be able to move forward. He took on many, many responsibilities, which so many of us as academics are rather loath to take on. He never placed himself first, but in no way was he self-effacing. He exuded warmth. Martin's humanity was always to the fore, his gentle humor, his kindness, his ability to just bring people together. He was excellent company. And most of all for me, he was my friend. Or better, I had the privilege of being his friend. And in 2023, he sort of, as we customarily did, he gave me his most recent book, which was the translation of Alberti's autobiographical and biographical writings for the Itati Renaissance Library. And in it, he had written in grande amicizia, underlining grande to sort of, and we met at Waterstones in Oxford, and he said, "You've understood what I've done." Yes, because it's the cliche that we have in so many books where people just quickly put down in amicizia. But what Martin, with that emphasizing that grande, wanted to highlight, wanted to stress that there was something more in the way in which our relationship worked. Italian brought us together, but back in, I think it was 1978, we were both teaching in Scotland at the time, and all the Scottish departments would meet up at a place called the Burn. And I think that's where, in our 20s, mid to late 20s, Martin and I first met. But it wasn't Italian that bound us together, far from it. It was lots of other things. It was football, soccer, he was a very keen Celtic fan. And for him, Celtic was part of his identity. I'm sorry. We also spent a lot of time talking about popular music, something we both shared. We talked about politics, and we often would do that over another great shared interest of ours, which is real ale, the hand-pumped beer, and now which even has sort of begun to creep into America, I hear. I haven't been back to the States for several years, nor do I expect to be coming over to that side of the Atlantic for reasons which I'm sure you can appreciate. He was excellent company. He was just great to be with. He was somebody, and I was thinking about this on the train from Reading to Bristol, which is just an hour away, that he was the only academic about whom I've never heard anybody say an ill word. Can you imagine that in our profession? Not a single person, at least not in my hearing. Martin could easily have not become an Italianist, but he was an Italianista in the Italian meaning of the word, i.e. he was somebody who authoritatively spanned Italian literature from the Middle Ages to late 20th century literature. His first degree at the University of Glasgow was in classics, where, because of the brilliance of his degree, he was offered a Snell exhibition to Balliol College in Oxford, where he did a second BA degree in Italian and classics. And from then on, he moved on to do a doctorate on literary imitation in Renaissance Italy, which then appeared as his first book with Oxford University Press in 1995. And the title is clearly explanatory as to what its remit is. Literary imitation in the Italian Renaissance, the theory and practice of literary imitation in Italy from Dante to Bembo. It's the first survey, surprising as it may sound, that 30 years ago, Martin was the first to actually give an overarching assessment of theory and practice of imitation in the Italian Renaissance. The book opens with a very brief chapter on Dante, which he plays down the role of imitation in Dante, which probably was about where our thinking on Dante was 30 years ago. But I think if he was doing that particular research project now, there would be a much more substantial chapter on Dante and Dante's imitative practices and theories. Otherwise, as I've said, it was a wide-ranging look at humanistic discussions, debates, but also practices. It wasn't just it looked at the theory as was often done by scholars in Italy, but actually looked at the way in which writers then put theory into practice. And it had a substantial chapter on Alberti, on whom I'll come back. Two institutions had the privilege of counting Martin amongst their members. Edinburgh, where he taught from 1977 to 90. Martin was a proud Scot, and then Oxford, where from 2001 to 2017, he was the Agnelli Serena Professor of Italian Studies. Our careers sort of ran on parallel sort of tracks. We often would sort of joke about it. We both started in Scotland, I in 76, he in 77. I then moved south. 10 years later, he too moved south, 22, 23 miles away. And then we both he first, and then I did, move to the Serena chairs at Oxford and Cambridge. Alas, he didn't follow me to America. That would have been wonderful, but we did have one term, one semester at Notre Dame, where we were near neighbors in Chicago where we lived, and we were colleagues, and it was probably one of the finest times of our relationship. Martin always stressed that he wasn't a Dantist, and I'll come back to that. He had four main areas of academic expertise: the classical tradition, the reception of Italian culture, especially in the United Kingdom, Calvino and the modern novel, humanism, with a special reference to Alberti, which in the last years, probably the last 10 years of his academic career, was his primary area of interest, and which produced two books, one in 2016, Leon Battista Alberti, La Vita, l'Umanesimo, le opere letterarie, published by Olszki, and then last year with Princeton UP, Leon Battista Alberti, writer and humanist. Martin's scholarship is marked by exemplary historicist and philological rigor. You can trust Martin. He's checked everything. He's gone through the critical tradition, gone through the documentation, and with a meticulousness that is exemplary. He also reveals an acute sensitivity and joy in the nuances of literary language. He was an extraordinarily able, close reader of text, as is evidenced by his last Dante contribution, which appeared in 2020, a reading, a lectura of Purgatorio 30, for which appeared for the Lectura Dantis Bonognensis. And all of this was written in a prose that is remarkable for its stylistic elegance and clarity. And we move to his fifth area of expertise, to what he left us as a scholar, namely his extraordinary skill as a translator. If any of you have read Calvino in translation or Eco, it's not unlikely that you will have read it in Martin McLaughlin's translation. As I said, he wasn't a Dantist, and Martin always insisted that he wasn't one. Out of his substantial list of publication, there are 11 studies that touch on, and I choose, again, my verb advisedly, touch on Dante. 3 edited volumes, co-edited volume, of which 2 with me. And I would simply like to recall, because of the joy it gave both of us, Italy's 3 Crowns, reading Dante, Petrarch and Boccaccio, which in 2007 was published by the Bodleian Library in Oxford, which was a volume accompanying an exhibition that we curated of the extraordinarily rich holdings, both manuscript and early printed texts, that Oxford has of Dantean material. He also wrote 4 essays which loosely sort of deal with Dante's reception, 2 introductory occasional essays, and 2 substantial articles on Dante. The first one he wrote appeared in 1997, The Rock and the Vine, Pier della Vigna, Dante, and the Imagery of Empire, which appeared in volume edited by John Woodhouse, Dante and Governance. And what he shows is the dependence of Dante's epistles on the letter writing of Pier della Vigna. As you can see, imitation, literary borrowing, was always at the center of his thought. Over 20 years later, he wrote this brilliantly illuminating the stylistic content, the stylistic character of Purgatorio 30, as I mentioned. I want to come back and linger for a moment on this piece, but before I do that, I just want to make, if Robert allows me, a 30-second digression on Rachel. I didn't really know Rachel. I met her a few times, but like Martin, I was struck by her generosity and kindness, which was confirmed by Lino Pertile for the extraordinary support she gave Lino and his family when they moved to America. I did spend with Maggie and David Ward and Eugenia Paulicelli a wonderful afternoon once in her apartment in Boston, which has always remained in my memory and which sort of shapes my sense of Rachel's kindness and concern for others. Rachel, too, and it's this a fortunate coincidence here, Rachel, too, wrote a lectura of Purgatorio 30, which Martin draws on with approval in his reading. And I want to finish by reading Martin's own words, the concluding paragraph of his lectura, in which, with a poignancy that only we can appreciate, Rachel and he come together. However, the most poignant element of all, given today's commemoration, as you will hear, is the paragraph's concluding sentence, and especially its concluding clause. I read from Martin. Rachel Jacoff chiama il 30° del Purgatorio Dante's signature canto, cioè l'unico canto in cui Dante traccia la sua firma. Abbiamo visto che è il canto dei numeri e dei nomi, ma l'allusione al giudizio universale all'inizio del canto, al novissimo bando, ci ricorda che il suo nome pronunciato in quella maniera severa da Beatrice sarà il nome con cui l'uomo Dante verrà convocato da Dio al giudizio universale. Un canto quindi, and this is the last sentence, un canto quindi che si rivolge non solo verso il passato del poeta e dell'amante di Beatrice, ma anche verso il passato del genere umano nel giardino dell'Eden. È un canto che guarda verso il futuro di Dante nel suo viaggio verso il paradiso, and here's the last clause, e anche il futuro di tutti noi fino al giorno del giudizio universale. Thank you.
Thank you, Zig. That was really, really beautiful. I appreciate it so much. Thank you. Thank you from all of us, from the heart. I think you were the perfect person. So I appreciate that. So we'll move directly to Robert Pogue Harrison, who is emeritus at Stanford University, Emeritus Rosina Pierotti Professor of Italian Literature. And he knew Rachel Jacoff for a very long time, I think. So I asked him if he would say a few words.
Thank you very much, Allison, and greetings to all of you from Rome. I see some familiar faces, very fond faces for me, students as well as other colleagues. So I was asked by Allison to say a few words about Rachel Jacoff because although she was not in any technical sense my dissertation committee member, she came into my academic life at exactly the right time when I was at Cornell University. Giuseppe Mazzotta was my dissertation advisor. He had moved on from Cornell to Yale just as I was beginning my dissertation. Cornell invited Rachel to teach for a semester Italian, and I sat in on the course that she taught for graduate students on the Italian lyric, and I had just begun writing, well, I had been struggling for a few months to write a first chapter of my dissertation. And as most of you know, this consciousness of a graduate student is an unhappy one, if I can use a Hegelian expression for that. You're trying to establish your own voice of authority at a time when you really don't have one, and you're trying simultaneously to appease the academic superego, which mostly consists of your committee members and your dissertation advisor. And it's the most stultifying kind of conditions under which to operate and try to bring it. But that's, you know, this is a kind of trial by fire that writing a dissertation entails. And, you know, I won't speculate about what might have happened had Rachel not appeared at that moment in my own sort of graduate student development. But when I got to know her and shared what I had written, talked to her endlessly about Dante and the Vita Nuova. She was teaching a class on the Italian lyric, and she was so expansively generous in her response, and completely turned around a kind of psychology of, you know, semi-inhibition into one of getting into a hurry to go on to the next chapters and, you know, bring to fruition the insights that I had, or I believed I had, into the Vita Nuova, insights that I was always second guessing until she came on the scene and gave me, you know, a great deal of confidence in that. So, you know, for that, I will always be very grateful to her. She's really one of the most important people in my academic life, for sure. But beyond that, as most of the people who pronounced testimonials at the memorial a few weeks ago, you know, she was an extraordinary friend and full of generosity to everyone that she was in touch with. One of the great listeners. There's so few genuine listeners in social converse, but she was certainly one who listened generously to her interlocutor. And, you know, I've had the good fortune to have become friends with some people who were remarkable conversationalists. At Cornell, A.R. Ammons, the poet, the American poet A.R. Ammons, who was teaching creative writing and poetry, always in his office all day long with not that many people dropping by. And with him, I had some truly remarkable conversations, memorable to this day. When I moved to Stanford, Michel Serres, the French philosopher, was one of my colleagues and a good friend of mine. Really quite memorable conversations. And then there's Rachel. She, as I told her this, I mean, I kind of repeated it to her shortly before she passed, saying that, you know, some of the best conversations I've had in my life were with her. And with her, Michel Serres, and A.R. Ammons. And of course, Dante was the topic of conversation very frequently. It was not the usual sort of academic conversation or even analytic conversations. You know, for what I learned about Dante from Rachel, and I have to say that I've learned more from Rachel about Dante than all other Dante scholars put together. But what I learned is that there's a huge discrepancy between the surface of the text and, you know, the deep structures that are supposed to be organizing the Divina Commedia. And that the idiosyncrasy of the articulation of the poem spoke about its author, but not the author in the abstract, Fritscherian sense, about the difference between the author and the pilgrim and how they become one, but that there was a Dante in our conversations that was almost like a friend of ours or an acquaintance of ours who was quirky, was weird, and it was precisely in the weirdness of the poem that we took a particular kind of delight. And that pedagogy, it was really a kind of pedagogy that, without being within a pedagogical framework, but in a conversational framework, is something that she carried over into the classroom. I co-taught with Rachel, we co-taught Dante, we co-taught also a kind of introduction to the great epic traditions and so forth. And I really wish that some of her students from Wellesley could, speak in my stead about what a remarkable teacher she was, and how she was able to animate, bring to life the Commedia in pointing out in her quiet way what was so radical about the poem and what did not correspond at all to the general dogmas and orthodoxies of Dante scholarship. And in that sense, her connection to the person, I really do believe that she had an ongoing friendship, a real, genuine amicizia with Dante. And here, I can maybe defer to Beth Coggeshall. I know that I see her there in the presence and her work on friendship in Dante. Well, Dante becomes a friend in a very real way to someone like Rachel. The other, I thought that I should say something about her contribution to Dante's studies, and I could refer to her commentary not only on Purgatorio but on the Lectura Dantis of Canto 2 and the essays that she's published. However, this is in line with her conversationalism. She was much more at home in the spoken word than the written word, in that sense Platonic, or let's say Socratic in the way we have a critique of writing. And I think that writing kind of put her in a straitjacket that she could never really become comfortable in. And therefore, although I always believed, and I told her many times, that she should collect her essays and have someone edit them, and that I would find someone to do that the way she did for John Frichero's essay, that would be a very remarkable collection, very useful. And yet I don't know how else the other side of Rachel, which is the side that was communicated in the spoken word and in a more informal setting, either of the classroom or the kind of endless conversations that, she was a smoker. I was a smoker as well. Part of our conversation was nourished by cigarettes. And it's extraordinary how, what cigarettes will do to prolong conversations. So, I remember in MacArthur Park at Stanford when there used to be a smoking section upstairs, a non-smoking section downstairs. By 8:45, 9 p.m., downstairs was completely empty. And upstairs in the smoking section, it was going on well beyond midnight because wine, tobacco, and discourse go together. And of course, there's a Dante that comes forth in that kind of situation that is not one that you're going to necessarily read about in what she wrote about in Fedra 2, or those really nice articles that she wrote about Paradiso. And let me just say, I don't want to go on too long because I know that we might have to wrap up an hour, I don't know what time, but just something about Paradiso. Her favorite canto was Paradiso 14, which is the canto of the resurrection. Not because she had any theological investment necessarily, but she found a particular sort of fascination in the idea that the saints in heaven are essentially unrecognizable because they don't have their bodies, and therefore many of you will remember that when the saints in Paradiso 14 think or look forward to recovering their dead bodies, that they kind of glow with even greater luminosity because not so much for themselves, says Dante, but for le mamme, padre, cari suoi, and all the loved ones, that they can finally recognize their loved ones as the particular individuals that they are, because without a body, there is no possibility of that kind of individuated recognition. And that is, for me, what she gave her approach to Dante, which I certainly inherited as much as I could, was a kind of giving of body to the author of the Divine Comedy, not the monumental author, not the allegorical, they're all part of the same phenomenon that goes under the rubric of Dante, but the particular personhood of that author. So I'd like to think that she's somewhere in her own resurrected body, smoking without any sort of pernicious after effects, that come from the cigarettes and her wine, which she also loved, and that somehow she's there in converse with not only Dante, but so many of the other literary authors that she was so friendly with, put it that way. So I will conclude my comments with that and ask Allison if you want to open it up to any questions or just.
Robert, these were so valuable precisely because the things that you're telling us about are the things that are not in the writings, right? The things that human experiences that you had, which would have been lost if you hadn't shared them with us. So I really appreciate it. Would anybody like to say anything? I mean, I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I don't want to not give the opportunity if anyone is inspired by an experience they had that they'd like to share. Okay, well, yeah, those are hard acts to follow, so I appreciate that. But yes, we knew them and we know them better thanks to these lovely commemorations. I appreciate it. And with that, I believe we're done. And thank you. I hope to see all of you again before the next meeting in a year, but that'll be my last one as president. So thank you all for coming and for your faithfulness to this whole enterprise and why a poem brings people together in so many different ways. It's a kind of fascinating thing. So thank you all. And
Listen, I see you in Florence, I hope.
yes, I'll see you in Florence, Rob. Have a
Okay.
great summer, everybody.